What is up, my little deinos? Vepsis here, your gods of the Helsinki Hydreigons, and we are here for the Eon World Trophy Week 5 battle versus Leo aka SixftHax and his team being the Durham Druddigons. Make sure to check him out if you, whatever reason, haven't heard of him or haven't checked him out and you are following me and my Draft League content. Make sure to check him out. He is way bigger and more well-known Draft League player than I am, obviously. So that's kind of why it seems weird for me to even try to recommend to go check him out. But make sure to do that. I have followed him since UCL Season 2, where I really followed closely Mega Mogwai while he was still playing, and that was his final Draft League season. And he actually went up against Leo 2 times, once in a regular season and once in the finals on the UCL Season 2. And because I was fan of Mega Mogwai, obviously it was kind of heartbreaking to see him losing 2 times to this guy, but it's really exciting to go up against him because I've been following him since then. He has gained my respect ever since then, and I have followed him closely and tried to learn from him since then, knowing that how good of a player he can be and what kind of opponents he can beat throughout his career, and he has been able to beat what I should say. So regards to the team of 6 that I'm gonna be bringing and actually show you guys the roster that my opponent does have. You already saw the team of 6 that he does bring, but there's his roster in itself compared to mine. His C captains are the Volcarona and Stoutland, and the team of 6 that I'm gonna be bringing is gonna be quickly mentioned that we have Assault Vest Mamoswine, Assault Vest Victini, also Physically Defensive Gligar, Physically Defensive Tentacruel, Dark Noob Sea Zeraora, and the Assault Vest Contact in itself. I don't want to cover their moves more in depth, otherwise like why I have everything what they are. Besides the fact that I probably should be explaining why half of my team is basically running Assault Vest. The basic idea with that is his bigger threats, or the biggest threats that I consider versus myself, and which were the most annoying for me to prepare for, were his Mega Alakazam, Tapu Fini, and Volcarona. All of them which are special attackers. Alakazam obviously can run Side Shock to hit on physical side, but that's more manageable for myself. But basically because those special attackers are so hard for me to switch into, hopefully the Assault Vest kind of helps me deter having to switch into them, and I can tank hits when he may not expect to, and then I can retaliate them harder than he would be hopefully versus us in itself. So we are kind of taking that kind of approach, more of like a bulky offense or balance build regards to that, where hopefully Zeraora, thanks to its speed tier, barring the Alakazam or a potential choice Scarfer or his Sandras uses in Stoutland and Sandslash, it can hopefully pick up the rest. From there on out, all my priority options through Skuntank's Sucker Punch or Ice Shot from Mamoswine can also pick up the rest in itself. We do also bring some hazard stacking options in Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes. Even though he has Tapu Fini and the Misty Terrain, Toxic Spikes can still be valuable once the terrain is worn out, and the Tapu Fini itself does get poisoned before the Misty Terrain gets activated. So it's kind of there in that kind of scenario, and Tentacruel didn't really need anything else this time around as its last move, so I decided to go that kind of route. And the reason why I don't go more in depth is because I do expect Leo to be someone who can potentially go up against in playoffs, when hopefully, knock on wood, we are gonna be making to the playoffs by end of the season, and I would expect him to make there himself, and there's always a chance we end up facing him there eventually, either round 1, semifinals, or even more hypely, maybe we both end up in finals, but that's obviously way too much thinking ahead. And speaking of that, let's move on to the present and go and see how this battle is gonna be turning out. So, because of the team of 6, he's gonna be bringing his Tyranitar, Tapu Fini, Mega Alakazam, Sandslash, Volcarona, and the Stoutland in itself. And my lead going to this matchup, I decided there were a couple of options that I actually debated on first before I saw his team of 6 that I would decide potentially lead up with. But I decided once I saw his team of 6 that okay, Mamoswine actually looks to be for the most part my best option to lead with, barring him leading up with a potential defensive Stoutland with Intimidate, forcing me out because I cannot hit it too hard, and he would potentially carry something to hit me harder, and the Tapu Fini could be a potential lead because it matches up relatively well versus my most of the things on paper. So that would be an annoying option for him to lead up with. But if he doesn't lead with one of those, Mamoswine has a good matchup versus the rest. So that's why I led up with it. And you're gonna be seeing that it actually pays off for me, because he's gonna be leading up with his Tyranitar. And here I prioritized immediately that, okay, if he happens to stay in for whatever reason, I want to Earthquake this thing, because it's a mon that is somewhat not easy for me to switch into if it gets its predictions right, and it's also a nuisance obviously to my big teenies, so being able to eliminate that thing or weaken it down quite heavily with a Earthquake, even if it's able to take it, is still worth for me to do. But he does reveal to have a defensive Studland, or more so defensive. It's not fully physically defensive based on how much damage we were still able to do. But thanks to the Intimidate and Leftovers, he can definitely take 2 Earthquakes, how he probably designed it to be able to do. And here I do swap out into my Gligar as he goes for a safe return. Scouts what I'm gonna be how I'm gonna be responding to Starland potentially, and maybe not trying to reveal anything on it. So I went into my Gligar, backing on the fact that if he packs Ice Fang, he's not gonna be hitting it in front of the Mamoswine. And I can go into Gligar, and then I can go for the U-turn, expecting the Tapu Fini to come in if I would be going for Stealth Rock, so he can force me out and get rid of them. But he actually goes into his Tyranitar instead, so I was like, oh, that's a turn 1 scenario all over again. But now you have already had to swap into my Mamoswine once, so now you have to do it again, and this Starland won't be enjoying to take another one, but now he decides to go into his Tapu Fini. So early on we are able to get some good offensive pressure versus him, which I really like, and Mamoswine is doing what it needs to do versus Leo, which is just forcing things out and forcing his defensive responses to take the chip and eventually get too worn down by this, because he obviously didn't have on paper anything to switch into. And how does one actually switch into Mamoswine? Like, there are very few mods in Draft League format that can, and he thankfully doesn't have any of those which can do it consistently wise. So he's gonna be going for the Nature's Madness. Good prediction, knowing that I have Tentacruel in the back to take a potential Water type move, but it was still my best play. I don't want my Mamoswine take that 50%, even if I had a Salt Vest and tried to predict the Water type move. It was never my best play to stay in, and Tentacruel, based on the set that I'm running, it's really here just to soft check this Tapu Fini, and here I kinda expecting him to swap out at this point into his Mega Alakazam or a Tyranitar, but he actually stays in and goes for a second consistent Nature's Madness, so he's really valuing to be wearing my Tentacruel down, which does make sense in a long run for his behalf, but I let him explain that from his point of view why he did that. But I went for my Toxic Spikes because I wanted to potentially force Tapu Fini or Stanland or anything on his team on that matter, once the terrain is gone, to take that 12% of chip through the Toxic Spikes. And then I went for the safe Sludge Bomb. Honestly, I could have, in hindsight, predicted that, but I probably would have made the same play regardless. So he just made a good offensive play, going to his Tyranitar, and now I do miss my Muddy Water, which is like my little cheesy Water type move to run this week, thanks to him having the Misty Terrain, so I didn't worry about running Scald, so I took my chances of running Muddy Water. So that was the one scenario where it's a kind of bad thing to run it, because it does have some accuracy issues, being 85% accurate. But now, the good side is gonna be coming into play, because I do get the accuracy drop, and we dodge a crunch, because we are lucky and bad. Yeah, but, like, in a recto perspective, of just in a hindsight, I don't try to butcher that word anymore, as I already did. It kinda evened itself out, because I first missed it, and then he missed out because of the accuracy drop. So I guess it wasn't the best option for me to run Muddy Water. Maybe the best option was still running Surf, so I would have just two-shotted this thing right from there and got my guarantee hit, so the 2 shots. But hey, we are trying things this week. I never run Muddy Water ever on any mons, barring a Kudra, which is probably the only mod people would expect to run that move in itself. But either way, Tentacruel had to go down there versus the Tyranitar. I didn't want to swap into it and risking a potential Ice Punch or it outspeeding my Gligar on that point of one. when the tentacle was so low already in extension itself. So I let it go down so my Mammoth Swine can get in for free, and we could go for the Earthquake. And this is gonna be one of my 2 big misplays that I do in this battle, which is staying in on this tower. I don't know why I just decided to stay in and hope for the fact that I would outspeed it, because there was a decent chance I won't, based on the fact that he wasn't fully physically defensive. But I stay in, got a little bit of greedy, and I do get punished for that, where I could have easily gone into Gligar. I could have so easily gone into Gligar and gone for the U-turn, but I got greedy for trying to be able to outspeed that thing and 2-shot it, and 2, for whatever reason, he would be trying to predict my Gligar and make a double. Maybe I would have caught that thing, for example the Tapu Fini, on a swap and got a Earthquake on that thing in itself. But like honestly, it was just a greedy play for my behalf. I had to pay the price for it, which is letting go of my Mammoth Swine after it was able to finish off the Starland. But not definitely an extension that I wanted to happen, that Mammoth Swine is the first one to go down for my behalf, because it's the one that my opponent definitely struggles the most to deal with. So it was a misplay for my behalf, but we are gonna be working what we have and what we have done so far. And here I do make my aggressive play, which I felt like I had to do because I don't expect him to stay in. So I swap into my Gligar, trying to gain some initiative if the Sandslash does come in, and from there on out I can potentially get up my Stealth Rocks or go for Earthquake or U-turn, whichever I felt like most confident with, based on how he would react to it. But he went into his Tyranitar, and here I took my chances that okay, I don't want to swap out and let anything else take damage. I have to bank on the fact that I outspeed this thing, and he's not super speedy Tyranitar to outspeed my Gligar with my speed investment. And I do outspeed it, go for the U-turn, and now I decide to bring my Serral out, because the reason why I picked this one specifically was that I wanted to keep the Tapu Fini out, not come versus me after he can choose based on what I brought in. But here I make a second big mistake, which is that I try to go for the Throat Chop, banking on the fact that Bug Pass cannot be used by this thing until it swaps out, because that's how I understood how this move works. But what I should have had done, which honestly I had no reason not to do it, even if I thought it like that, I should have not taken any chances here. I should have gone for the Volt Switch, gone into my Victini, and not now risking a fact that he pops his C move on the turn that I swap in, because I made this play that if he goes for +2, try to set up further, and he doesn't pop his C, hopefully I can make him pop the C move instead, and sack something else on my team, and then let Victini come in and deal with this Volcarona, because the mistake I did. But because he went for his C already, he punishes me at the worst way possible. And this is gonna be very tough from here on out, because now I'm banking on the fact that Skuntank doesn't get burned by his Flame Body ability, assuming that he would be running that ability over anything else like Swarm. And I have to bank on the fact that I do enough damage that Poison Jab into potential Sucker Punch, if he doesn't have Roost, can 2-shot this thing and I don't get burned. Like now, if I do get burned after this and I don't especially get a poison, it's basically over from here. So Skuntank, please get the poison, get a poison or a crit. You don't get a crit, you don't get a poison, but you do get burned. So this is where basically we are gonna be losing this game out on this Volcarona, especially if it has Roost, and you're gonna be seeing that it does. So he is dual stab, Quarter Dance and Roost with relatively bulky set, and I'm gonna be using the rest of the time, as you're gonna be seeing the replay playing out in the back. You already know based on how I'm talking that we do lose this game. I'm going to talk about the play that I did with the Throat Chop. So basically how I understood on the spot when I was doing it. First mistake, check how Throat Chop works before you go into battle. Web potato thing. That's a web potato thing for me, because I didn't check that, because I assumed that it worked like I thought it would, which would be that it would be nullifying sound type moves until it swaps out. But I read it wrong for whatever reason. It only works for 2 turns, that it prevents opponent to use a sound type move. And how the C moves work, basically it meant also that he was able to use the C move through the Bug Pass, even though he was still affected by the Throat Chop on the turn that he went for it. So because of the fact that I didn't click Volt Switch, got the chip damage, into my Victini based on the fact that what kind of spread he was running. Make sure to check out his point of view. He did make a team builder so you can actually see what kind of spread his Volcarona was running. And my volt switched from my Adamant Zeraora into my Adamant 196 attack invested Victini. Those two moves combined, unless I got an absolute mean roll from either of those attacking moves, I believe, they would have guaranteed me to 2-hit KO this Volcarona. It was heavily in my favor. I think Leo actually called himself first before I did, after we talked about this, right after the battle was done. And he admitted himself that it was heavily in my favor. So even how I thought about how the throat chop worked, I still should have not taken the risk. I should have just gone into the Victini through the wall switch, bank on the fact that I don't crit it on that turn as he goes for the C move, which I was basically in a position that I put myself into at that point of time, and gone from there, taking my losses if the Victini gets worn down from that, just to make sure that the Volcarona didn't get out of hand. And then we would have been in a position that Victini would have lived like it was able to do on the actual battle in itself, but then it died on the regular park walls afterwards. It should have lived on that kind of range. I would have still had 4 months remaining from there on out, including that Victini in the field. And he would have had 3 months remaining in the Mega Legacy, which was fully healthy and not gone into the field yet. The Sandslash, the same story, and then he had the Tapu Fini, which was around 60 or 65% of health, if I remember right, or if you remember what health it was at when it the last time showed out in the field. That was basically the position where we were at. I had the Victini still, I had my Gligar, I had my fully healthy Zeraora, and I still had a fully healthy Skuntank. So, in a Rector's perspective, I should have been able to give him a lot harder fight than I ended up doing, only because that I made that huge mistake. I did make 2 mistakes, one with staying in with Mamoswine, not going to my Gligar, which would have been just safe, and a play that I did last time would have put myself in a fantastic position from there, and I would have been able to just prevent that Volcarona sweep if I just played it like I was supposed to in my team builder part, how I prepared for it. I should have just followed that plan, not gone fancy with it, the throat chop idea, what I had on the spot, and I basically just gave it to Leo. I kind of like, in a worst case scenario, how I would say it, I kind of choked it. And I don't tend to do these kind of mistakes. I feel like if I would give myself an excuse, or for your viewers who have followed me for a while and know that I don't end up doing these kind of mistakes, even when I lose, usually it's just for my opponents just playing really well or prepping really well. I really do make a massive mistake like I did and lose my battles anymore. Like I'm relatively really consistent coach, I would consider, at least myself, just battling my back in that regard. But I wasn't that, I wasn't myself, and I feel like I was a little bit overexcited of playing Leo. I feel like that was something that kind of caught into me on the spot as I was playing, and that kind of made me not being as sharp as I was supposed to be. And it's like I can forgive myself because it's a learning experience for me. I haven't gone up against someone like him before in that aspect, when I know there's some more extra pressure to it, because I know he's a big YouTuber himself. There's gonna be people watching this closely who know me or do not know him. I'm really excited to go up against him. So a lot of these things might be got into my head in a way that I wasn't too nervous about this situation. I was just overly excited about the opportunity, and it kind of clouded my vision in that regard, and I kind of made a couple of rush decisions, and I got too cute when I was not supposed to do or be like that, and I should have just followed my game plan from there. But hopefully we can still make to the playoffs. We are still 3-2. Good game to Leo. He played it just like he was supposed to with his team that he decided to bring, and especially with the Volcarona. And yeah, I cannot really be too salty. I'm just really upset at myself, just being completely honest. But it's a learning experience. I take most out of this. I don't feel like I was outplayed. I don't feel like I was outprepped. I just stumbled on my own feet, and it's just something that I have to clean myself out of. when I go up against him yet again. So I feel still confident that I can beat Leo and his caliber of players if I ever get to play them again, or I get to play Leo again. I definitely feel like I can beat him here in the Eon World Trophy. I just cannot beat this reckless with what I'm doing. I have to be more precise what I'm doing and not make those kind of mistakes, so I can really make him put more run to him and really just I'm trying to like say in a certain way, but basically I should be giving him a better fight than I end up doing this week, and I know I would have been able to give him a better fight if I just didn't make that mistake. But either way, that's enough for me to ramble about this, being disappointed of this week, how I performed. But the next battle you're gonna be seeing from my point of view is gonna be from the APA Academy week 11, if I remember right, when we go up against my a good friend of mine and my graphics maker in SlackOut, and it's gonna be a really cool opportunity for us to go up against each other after such a long time, and you're gonna be seeing that on this upcoming Sunday. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to Leo, make sure to check him out if you haven't yet. You can learn a lot from him. And hopefully you're gonna be stick tuned for here as well for the rest of the season of the Eon World Trophy. But until those times, thank you for watching, and until then, I'm gonna be see you guys later.